each other as well. We're going to go ahead and get started and let people come in as they go so we don't get off schedule here today. We have a lot of great information to bring to you. My name is Nancy Brown. I'm the Community Preparedness Program Manager for Sonoma County's Department of Emergency Management. I just want to tell you all a couple of things. First of all, humbled to have you here on a Saturday morning. I think the weather worked in my favor, but thank you very much. And second of all, I want you to give me some grace because this event is about planning great events, but I haven't seen it yet. So, so we can use this as a test case, and I won't be offended if you say, but this and that didn't happen today as we go through the event today, all righty? I'd like to introduce my Deputy Director, Jeff Duvall, who is going to give us some quick opening remarks. Jeff?
So good morning. Thank you everyone for coming out today. I'm Jeff Duvall. I am actually the outgoing Deputy Director in the next couple weeks, and will be transitioning into my new role as the Director for the Department of Emergency Management for the county. Thank you. So my new role will be Director of the Department of Emergency Management here for Sonoma. So very excited to step into that role and continue the great work that we do. But more importantly, help support the great work that you do in our communities each and every day. It's truly about that, and I was talking to John from Cool Petaluma for a quick moment this morning, and I like something that you said this morning. It's the currency in our neighborhoods moving forward. It's getting to know each other, getting to have those conversations, knowing who lives down the block. It's not that person that you just wave hi to every day. It's, oh, that's Frank. Oh, by the way, here's the skills that Frank has. And keeping that in the back of your head for when something does happen. How do we empower our community? How do we empower you as our community champions to rally them and get them together for preparedness? I want you to think about two numbers real quick. Sonoma County is home to 500,000 people that call this county home. There's a little over 4,000 in the county workforce. So if you think about that, when that big earthquake happens, we can't be everywhere at once. We need your help. I need your help to rally our community, get them excited about preparedness, have those conversations, who's in your neighborhoods, who has what, and prepare. So that's my ask to you, is to continue that great work that you do through your fire safes, your community associations, your neighbors, your family members, because I believe in the power of one. You're going to take the stuff that you hear here today and what you're already doing, and you're going to be talking to a neighbor, talking to a friend about this or about what you're doing and how you're moving your community towards preparedness and resiliency, and they're going to get excited, and they're going to want to do it. And you know what? They're going to keep playing that forward and continuing that message. So again, just thank you so much for taking time out on a Saturday, coming here, listening to an amazing lineup of speakers, and just putting more tools in your toolbox to use in your community. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Have any of you seen our Prepare Yourself series on NorCal Public Media? Okay, so it's a very cute series. It's very interesting. I'm going to play you a segment here. He's doing some shooting for that, and hopefully you'll be able to hear the sound. This is just a couple of minutes. Let me play this for you. But this is our attempt at trying to talk to people differently. We're just trying to get their attention in a new way about the same old stuff. So this is an episode about go bags.
And now back to The Prepared Bachelor.
Wow. This has been an incredible first week. So many ups and downs. But you all have really shown me so much about yourselves. And knowing that you're here, trying to find a place in my heart, means everything to me.
Going into the rose ceremony, I'm feeling really nervous. I just don't know if Kyle is going to choose me for his go bag. I mean, I know my worth. Double A's are one of the most useful things to have in an emergency, because you never know when something like your flashlight is going to run out of juice.
What did batteries say about me? That I could run out of juice? Excuse me, but I am incredibly reliable. Much more reliable than a phone flashlight, by the way. I'm a classic. I just hope Kyle sees that. I feel very confident that after the conversations Kyle and I have had this week, he's going to give me a rose. I mean, not to brag, but how could he not? He'll see that he can't live without me.
Water. Water, do you accept this rose?
I do. I knew I was a shoo-in. I mean, come on. I'm water.
First aid kit. First aid kit, do you accept this rose?
Of course I do. Earlier this week, I really opened up and showed him what's truly inside me. Band-aids, antibiotic ointment, alcohol swabs. So I was really betting on him seeing the value of what I can bring to the table. And it looks like he did.
3-day supply of food. Do you accept this rose?
Absolutely.
Radio. Emergency blanket. Resealable baggies. Do you accept this rose?
I do.
Now you would be critical if there was a flood.
Thanks. I know.
I'm feeling anxious and confused. Doesn't Kyle see that sparks fly between us? Why hasn't he chosen me yet?
I don't understand why I'm still here, being picked last. It really hurts, you know. It hurts that he doesn't seem to realize what a light I could be in his life and in his go bag.
Flashlight. Flashlight, do you accept this rose?
Yes, of course I do. Thank you.
And now, the final rose of the night. Batteries. Batteries? Do you accept this rose?
Oh, yes, of course.
Now, for those of you who did not receive a rose tonight, please take the time. This would be your moment to say your goodbyes.
I've just given up so much in my life to be here, and I wanted to be here so much, but I guess I can go home now and start over with a clean slate. I wish. Could somebody grab me something to wipe my eyes with? Thank you.
This was one segment. The shows are 26 minutes long, and they're full of all kinds of interesting vignettes, interspersed with some different interviews and more serious topics as well. One of our big goals, of course, is to reach people we haven't reached before in a new way. So I heard a lot of laughing. That's good news, right? Good. So next up, we have our afternoon speakers. Let me get the slides up here. And we have Heather Lerner and Taylor Ray, who are going to talk about the experience continuum. If you all could join me up here. You taking this one? Yeah. Okay.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Taylor Ray. We have this hallowed slot after lunch, which is nappy time for everybody. So we have designed the next hour to keep things popping and moving, and hopefully we won't hear a snore from anywhere in the room. By way of introduction, my name is Taylor. Very good. Very good. So far, so good. And I'm with Studio B Creative, and we have B of Studio B in the corner. You can say hello to B. Hey, B. The work that we do is as a creative design agency. I'm sure you've seen it around the county and parks. We do a lot of work for, oh my gosh, the list is very, very long. But the essentials of what we do is helping people think differently and do things differently. And you can see the film that you just saw, that Chuckle, is a piece of opening people's minds to think about things in new ways. And I know this whole day has been about equipping you with skills and the things that you can need to go out and help people think about preparedness in a new way. And so when Nancy and I were talking about this afternoon and this afternoon slot, it became very clear that you needed to hear from my neighbor, Heather Lerner. And Heather has a framework for thinking about events. She has a scoreboard in her career that is really astonishing. And part of how she does what she does is this framework that she's going to share with you. And so with that, Heather, I'm going to pass the, oh, you've got one. No, terrific. Perfect.
We'll just do this. How about that for Zoom? Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Lerner. So nice to meet you. Nancy, thank you so much for gathering a great crowd for us today. It's nice to see you guys. And like you said, the coveted afternoon spot. We're going to keep it rolling really quickly. So why I wanted to be here today with you is to share this framework. I know that you're all in positions of families, everyone in your community involved in preparedness. And sometimes that's not the easiest sell. There's other things to do. There are things that are other top of mind. But as we've seen extremes in what we need to do to be prepared, we need to rely on each other, not just a county agency or different folks. We're looking to each other and our friends. How do we do that? And I understand that some of you, this might not be your first your first job or your only job. It might be something that you were voluntold to do. How many were voluntold to do these jobs? Yeah, I've been there myself. So the reason I wanted to share this with you is I've been there before, where I've had to gather people around for things they may or not want to do. I want to make sure that they come. I want to make sure that they stay. I want to make sure that they stay engaged in the mission of what we're trying to do. So I came up with this framework. I learned it many, many years ago. It was called the Recreation Continuum. It was touched on for about 5 seconds in a class at Chico State where I studied recreation administration, and I haven't been able to find it since. And yet I don't know why we only spent about 5 seconds on it, because it's pretty key. And there's 5 things to it. It's anticipation, travel to, the experience itself, travel away, and recollection. Those 5 things. Got it? It's easy, right? 5 things. There's a whole bunch of things in between, but we only have an hour for this today. If we were here for longer, I'd tell you all sorts of things about transitions and attractions and delights, things I've learned from the amusement park industry. I spent many years at a beautiful little park and zoo in San Jose called Happy Hollow, where I was the executive director of their foundation. I saw a smile back there. I love that. Oh, fantastic. Well, I got to have that be my personal artist canvas for many, many years. Okay. So in my most recent role, I was the Chief Development Officer for the Boy Scouts of America in Silicon Valley. And I had a wonderful run there, 5.5 years, and I had to put on little events for, little speakers like Condoleezza Rice and General Jim Mattis. And something I didn't want to do is have an empty room for people. And what I can tell you is you might have a message about emergency preparedness that is really important to sell, or you could even have someone like General Jim Mattis. It's still hard to sell. People are busy. That's why I want to share this framework for you. It's not like I could just post, hey, we're having Condoleezza Rice, and the room is flooded. We still had to build anticipation, travel to, the main event, the traveling away, and the recollection. And we had to do it over and over again. I probably did about 12 different events a year. So that's where this came from. So, and I talk about anticipation. The whole point of anticipation is to build excitement. When you're putting on a big event, when you're putting on a beautiful room like this for the day, you want to make sure that your people actually come. They might say they're going to come, and then something else comes up. Emergencies do happen. pun intended, emergencies do happen. We want to make sure that your guests stay. They might say yes at first, and then something might take up space in their mind. And so you want to make sure they're the first thing that they're thinking of the whole time. So you're continually building anticipation for your event. So that might be something from setting the tone from the very beginning. How many of you have received an Evite to an event? Great. Were you super excited to attend? Okay, that's what I thought. So something we talked about when we started developing this framework is the idea of an icon, and one of them was the idea of a wax seal. If you remember wax seals on letters, you know you can't mail those because they break. And so when you think about a wax seal, that's anticipation. If I walk up to you and I handed you an invitation that had a wax seal on it about emergency preparedness to an event that you were putting on, would you remember that more than an Evite? Perfect. Okay, thanks for following along. So that's one example of anticipation. Of course you can send an Evite. We all do. That's great for a follow-up. It's great for tracking your invitations. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's a great for send like automated messages. Say you've got hundreds and hundreds of people coming to something and you just need something automated. It's not the worst tool in the world. It's just not your only tool. You really want to get people excited. So think about what you can do from the very beginning to do that. Oh, we've got there. My pal Taylor's like, hey, don't forget your slides. When we think about events and planning, it's usually this is how we tend to think, is we've got some planning time, we're scurrying, okay, we got to pick a date, okay, maybe there's some catering, we got to think about who's coming, we're scurrying, and maybe it's just me that's scurrying, I do a lot of scurrying, and then there's the event itself. You think, okay, we're all in the event's got to be perfect, it's got to be amazing, what's the event, what's the venue, what are we doing, and then like if we're very lucky, we have some energy left over at the end, and there's some follow-up. Maybe it's like a survey monkey or something, or maybe a quick thank you note if we're lucky. Does that sound like most people in the room? Yeah? Okay, and this is how I want you to think about the event. I want to change the way you think about planning events. This is how, if you really put your mind to 20% of your energy going to the anticipation part, 20% thinking about travel to, and I'll touch that in a minute, 20% thinking about the actual event itself, and then 20% travel away, and then 20% recollection. I'll get to those in just a moment. So, yes, Taylor.
I'd just like to say, if you find yourself scurrying and writing this packet that you have in front of you, all of these things are there, and you can actually write on it. Right.
We left a little note page in there for you to jot your thoughts down. Yes?
Is this about how we feel about it, or how we want the people we're inviting?
Yes. That's a great question. And I'm going to repeat some of the questions back because I know for audio it might pick up on camera more if I repeat that class. So the question was, is this more about how we're thinking about it as planners, or is it how our guests are thinking about it? I want you to do both. You've been to events. Think about the event, and Tara will lead us through a great exercise in just a little bit here. Think about events where you were so excited to attend. I bet now that I've explained a little bit of this framework to you, I hope you're starting to think a little bit about things that you were really anticipating, things you were really looking forward to. Now, if it's a super big milestone event and your best friend's doing something that's super huge, she doesn't have to send you a wax strip sealed envelope. You're going to be excited anyway. But what if it's something else? There's so much clutter on our calendars. There's so much going on. And I want you as emergency preparedness people to be the calendar clearer. How do you clear the calendar? And so think about that in anticipation. So yeah, think about your guests and what they're going to be experiencing. When we go to travel to, my number one thing on travel to is safety. When people come to an event, how are they going to get there? It's like we've sent them an invite, we've sent them a card, they've got the address, we're good to go. We're just so worried about what they're going to have in the event itself. Spend some time on that travel to. How are your guests getting there? Where are they parking? But public transportation? Is there something in the way that day? I have had to bring up preparedness plans, especially up in this area. Fire, smoke, all sorts of things can happen the day of your event. And so you want to make sure you have everyone's guest information so you're always reassuring them how they're going to get here. They're going to get here safely. So then when they come in the room, they're ready to play with you. They're ready to be excited. They're not thinking all frazzled, oh my gosh, I don't know where to put my car. I didn't know there was going to be valet parking, and oh my gosh, it was $50. No one told me. So when I'm going to go in this lot over here, it's just like dark and scary and several feet away from the venue and all those different kind of things.
I'll just like to add, when you think about anticipation and generating that feeling with somebody that you need them there, how do you communicate? Your presence really matters. And then that travel too is also how do you start to make somebody feel welcome, that you've thought of them? So an example of travel too that isn't even about safety would be if you have something in a building and it's a long way, that you might have somebody stationed to say, oh, are you here for the thing? Great, it's just down the hall. It's that notion that you start that experience even before they ever walk in the door.
Thank you, Taylor. I love you and give you a few more examples. That's great. The event itself, we're not going to spend much time on the event itself. You know what you're doing. You know how to put on a great event. You know how to make sure that people feel great and the materials that you need. So we're not going to touch on that too much. Of course, I could if you wanted me to. I've planned many signature events. I've worked with Christy Yamaguchi on, we created something called the Reading Adventures at Happy Hollow, and I love creating signature events. So if that's exciting to you, talk to me off stage after we're done here. I could talk about it for hours, but we're going to get you to the other pieces here. Travel away is a lot like travel to. Safety, safety, safety. Lighting can change. This has happened to me many times where it's very bright in the middle of the day and the event takes up so much time. Things have changed. The way they exit has changed. The lighting has changed. There's tripping hazards. There's all sorts of things. Now I'm just talking about safety. There are so many other pieces to travel away that are so exciting. Something that I love to do in events. This gets a little bit more high grade, but the way someone enters the event, changing it differently when they exit the event makes it extremely memorable. You're going to hear me talk about memory a lot. We get into recollection. Recollection is how you remember something. And ideally, if you're doing things repeatedly, if you have a series of things, it's so much work to get people to clear their calendar. It's so much work to get them to come and spend the day. So you want to make sure, of course, the main event's going to be great, but how do you reinforce with them to come back to you over and over and over again? How do I get a breakfast that I do for the Boy Scouts 5 years in a row, increasing the attendance every single time? How do I do an event at the park and zoo that started at 100 people and ended at 900 people just 6 years later? How do I do that? It's about recollection. It's making sure that they're thinking about it, not just those 6 hours of the day, but the rest of the year, so they eagerly anticipate it next time. So that's part of how you do that. And that's why I know realistically you probably won't spend 20% of your time on each one of these modules, but as you're planning things, just kind of stretch out a little bit and think, wait a minute, have I actually thought about anticipation this week? Have I thought about recollection? And recollection, a few examples of recollection, like I know Nancy, I'm giving her a shout out. What a great little recollection piece. This useful item here that you're going to keep for a long time. It's got the name on it. It's going to sit on your desk. You're going to remember this. You're going to remember this. We've got a few other ways that you're going to remember this event today as well, but I won't spoiler alert that just yet. So, and recollection is how someone feels about your event afterwards. Is it just the photo link? Is it just I don't want you to end on a survey monkey. Is my point. Thank you for the laugh. When I showed you back to the other slide. Let me go back here, how we tend to think that 5%, that's my dish at a Survey Monkey, which is usually how people end up, usually lovely, lovely people who've worked so hard in an event, and they just have to get their metrics, they got to get it done, and they have to move on to the next thing. And that's the last thing I remembered about your party or your event or your incredible mission-driven passion was, okay, that's very housekeepy, but did you make me feel special? Do I feel like a part of something? Was my attendance, did it matter? And that's a big part of recollection is, did their attendance matter? Or not, why else would they come? Taylor, are we about ready for an exercise to show some things? Yeah. All right, I'm gonna hand you the microphone because I want you to get all these great talking on the video.
Terrific, and I'm gonna put up our pie. This is our pie, and what we want you to think about as you walk out of the room is pie. I want you thinking about pie. So when you're designing anything, really, could be designing a birthday party, could be designing a gathering, and certainly a neighborhood gathering, that these 5 pieces all can go into play. And so think for a moment of something, some experience that you've had, a party, an event, of something, of just one thing that sticks in your mind. One element of this that sticks in your mind. Good or bad? I can prime the pump if you need me to. Man in the corner.
I visited my best friend from college.
You visited your best friend from college, and what about that stuck in your mind? You hadn't seen him, and was there something about that experience that really...
He had had a stroke 2 years before, and I wanted to see him.
Okay, so that strikes me as something that would fit in anticipation, right? That you were looking forward to seeing your friend, And then you got to see him. And part of the reason that the event was so significant was that you hadn't seen him in that long. So you had a long time for anticipation, right? Anybody else? A party, an event? You in the back.
Right now, like the photo booths.
Yes, okay.
Or they have like little goodies that they give when you come in.
So she's talking about the photo booth. Have you guys know where I see some nods? Okay, and what was the other thing you said?
Any goodies that they give you when you come in.
Goodies. Is there a goodie that you remember that you've kept?
No, I don't remember. I mean, I can't recall right now.
Don't recall a goodie. Does anybody have a goodie, man?
My friends got married during the pandemic,
Oh.
so it was outdoors in Golden Gate Park.
Oh, lovely.
We got embroidered, like, lined blankets, basically, right? So we're
Oh.
outlet and all that stuff, and we just used it.
So embroidered blankets that were a beautiful part of the event, but then you took it back and you said you just used it yesterday. Wow, good. I saw some other hands about things. Go ahead.
I go to Giants games,
Mhm.
and when I saw your categories, I thought the travel from is always a nightmare.
Oh, travel from is a nightmare. Yeah.
Parking lots, they don't manage them, like all the tenants that were there when you got there are gone. And you could be in a parking lot trying to get out for half an hour. And I always call them and
Well, so interesting. Your point is really well taken. She's talking about the exit from the Giants game and the fact that the attendants are gone and it's a free-for-all and you can stand in line and nobody knows anything. And she gets angry. Like, I got to call somebody. So think about this. When we think about the pie, are you thinking about pie? Think about the pie. Good. That when you think about an event and all the effort that they put to put on that event, to get the players ready, all the electronics, all the food vendors, all of that work, she had a great time, but then they messed up the travel away and now she's mad. So they spent 3 hours giving her a really good time and then dropped the ball at the end. Other examples that pop to mind when you think about this pie in these categories: anticipation, travel to the event, travel away, and recollection. Ooh, I got a hand up.
we just did my dad's 90th birthday party.
90th birthday party.
And
Okay.
we had relatives coming from Southern California to Monterey, which is where my father lives. And my brother and I were going back and forth, and I'm like, no, dude, they don't know where this facility is. We need signs on the street so that people that are coming from out of town. He's like, no. I put them up anyway. But I also realized when I was putting them up that it was doing exactly what you were saying. It was increasing the anticipation. So when we drove my dad, he was getting excited just seeing the signs. But also speaking to the travel part, getting there. If people don't know where they can stay and how close it is to the venue and all these other things, they do get anxious. And so I was sending out emails to everybody that was coming from a distance, explaining to them where they could stay locally and things like that, just to kind of tie that piece up a little bit and make them feel more welcome. So
Lovely. Did everybody hear that? I'm going to have to paraphrase, a man in the back. So she's talking about her dad's 90th birthday and the sibling challenge that she had about we should put up signs for the out-of-town guests. And she ended up doing it on the sly. However, there was an unintended consequence, which was her father seeing the signs that helped him get more excited. And her comment was also on out-of-town guests, on how there's a level of anxiety that people can have when they go into someplace new where they don't know where to stay, where to put their car, what's going to happen next, all of that. And the point of this continuum is really to have people feel considered all the way through. And you'll see that the categories, to your point, start to influence each other. If you've done travel too really, really well, it'll bleed over into anticipation. Great. Good. More hands, more hands. Yes, go ahead.
I actually have 3 daughters, and this absolutely was wedding to me. You know, you've got the save the date card with their cute little picture, and then people have to travel from a distance to get there, very similar to your event. And then they always go home with a little something. In one daughter's case, it was wine, because it was wine country wedding, and it absolutely fits. The fact is, I wish you'd shown me this a while ago.
Good. Yes. One more, Joan.
In terms of what we're doing in West County, hills, roads, things that don't connect, I would think on an invite, 1 or 2 key words about other roads or things to be helpful. I spent a lot of time today driving around the casino because I came at golf course instead of the next one. I don't use the thing on the phone because so what to exit and how to get off, just what street am I in, this doesn't go through but take this side.
Right. And for those in the back of the room, she's talking about even today the importance of having directions and not necessarily assuming that people are coming on their phone. And she made this noise that you never want people coming to an event that you have worked so hard for, which is this. Which is that feeling of when you're lost or you think, why didn't somebody tell me that the this, the that, and that street doesn't go through? Right. A few more examples because then we're going to do a table exercise. Okay, go ahead.
The event that I'm thinking of was our Tubbs Fire evacuation.
Good.
Since we're all here. So there was the anticipation of knowing that the fire was coming and we were all sitting in our homes waiting, not knowing what to do. And then travel to, that was the actual evacuation, getting in your car and taking 2 hours to get out of Oakmont. And then the event and travel away. I mean, it all kind of fits the scenario here, I think.
Yes.
The recollection is still.
Well, truly. And that's an important point about the recollection is the more emotional and the more you remember it. It's simply how human beings are. And I think you make a really great point about this framework, and it will be our mwahaha goal for you today is that you will not be able to look at things the same way when you leave this room. And I'll add just one thing because then we're going to do a table exercise so that you can really dig into this and brainstorm together as a table. My fiance had a colonoscopy last week, and they fell down on the job on the anticipation. I thought you'd like that. The travel too. They told him his appointment was at 9:15. So he was very, very, very nervous. We had kids, we had to get to buses and all those things. We got a call at 8:30 that said, hey, where are you? He's like, my appointment's not till 9:15. And they said, no, we said in itty bitty 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 print to show up 45 minutes early. So now he's racing around. He arrives, things are undone, etc., to something very stressful. So it's heightened it. And there was a stack of paperwork that could have easily been done beforehand. However, the procedure itself, fantastic. And he exited with a picture of his own colon. So they aced the event. No, probably not. Yes. Oh, and even the travel away, they had a special entrance. He was walked out by a nurse. She made sure he got in the car. They did lovely there, lovely on the event. They were really skilled surgeons. But they died in the anticipation in the travel too. So,
I just want to point out that each of those 20% places can also be traumatic.
Good.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, say a little more about that. Yeah, let's.
Great. She was mentioning that each of the 20% can be, what was the word you used? Trauma. So I want you to talk about that, if you don't mind.
Well, for many of the people that we might live with or certainly work with, they might have had experiences that were traumatic, as we just heard from the colonoscopy. And so any of those places can be triggers for previous traumas, which can affect the whole rest of the situation. So coming into it with compassion and silence and love is important.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's a really key point. We've talked about weddings, we've talked about 90th birthdays, we've talked about reunions with old friends, we've talked about a lot of happy things, and sometimes there's some hard things we have to talk about. And I think that thank you for bringing up the trauma, to be careful on all these things, because the point is we want to minimize that. We want to maximize the joy and the connection of why, and we want to maximize that everyone that you're talking to, that they matter very much. Their participation matters very much, and that their participation and what they do will make a very big difference. I mean, of course, milestone events are wonderful and they're so much fun, but emergency preparedness is key. We're talking about saving lives, and that's what all you were doing here today. Taylor, I'm going to hand it back to you for our exercise.
So now I'm going to turn you to these packets that you have. Great, those packets. And there is a page that has some little sticky notes. Yes, this one. These are supposed to be sticky notes. It's kind of the best we could do. You see them? This page? Okay, good. I'm going to give you yours back. Thank you. So what I'd like you to do, we're going to take 5 minutes just individually for you to sit with yourself and think and jot some ideas down. So we're going to take 5 minutes, and then we're going to have a table discussion. So you discuss your ideas with the table. And at the very end, then we'll ask for hot ideas. So one idea from your table. So I want you to think of an upcoming event that you've got on your plate. So we're going to take this and we're going to take it out of theory and we're going to make it real. So something that you have to put on coming up. And choose one of these categories, the anticipation, the travel to. We didn't spend much time on the event. You can choose that one if you want, but for this purposes, you might want to try some of the other two. Travel away and recollection. So just choose one category for this time and just brainstorm, jot some ideas, some questions, some things you're thinking about. And then I'll let you know when the time is over, and then you can discuss your ideas as a table. Are there any questions? Nope? Okay. We're all back together.
That's good.
Yeah. You can always use that one. You can borrow that one for sure. So I'm really excited to see lots of conversation with the table, and I'm going to actually take one of the conversations I heard and send this question to Heather before we share. This is what we call our hot ideas share. So we're just going to share some of the things that you found especially intriguing as you talked about. There was a comment on our back table about the travel to and how people like information going into something. And the notion of the very fine line between being surprised in a bad way and being delighted in a good way. And I know, I hope you don't mind being put on the spot, but I know you have a lot to say about that one.
I love that audience plant. Once again, I feel like I've got all these audience plants to ask these great questions. So it's something I talk about a lot. Sometimes you can, in the anticipation phase, there's a downside to each one of these. If you spend too much time on anticipation, you're annoying. And people have just now turned you off. You just keep sending email after email after email or calling or whatever. It all gets almost to be like harassment. You've ruined the delight. You've ruined the anticipation. There is a fine line. Is it art? Is it science? It's a little bit of both. The idea that you need just enough information to get them there safely, to be excited, to be looking forward to it. You don't want your guests frazzled. That's the main thing, is just think about how you'd like to look forward to an event, as you don't want to be there frazzled. The signage around the event about using way stations or like landmarks, whatever that's going to be, like, hey, don't rely on your GPS. And you'll see some some cheat sheet notes in the back that outline a few of those things. But yeah, you're going to do, just know every one of these has a little bit of a dark side to it. You spent too much time on it.
Hot ideas that you have from your table. One idea per table. I'm going to pick on people. How about the back table here with the lady with the lovely red shirt?
See if this is working. Here you go.
I don't know if I have a hot idea, but I think that the biggest challenge and the one that I would welcome the most inspiration for is, how do we create that sense of anticipation to attend an event about something that people think they already know about. In other words, they know about the topic. And we know that they don't know everything that we want them to know. So how do we pique their curiosity? I don't have an answer for that. I want the answer for that. Does anybody at my table have a hot idea? Sorry, I'm a fail. I'm a fail.
Is there anybody at another table that might want to respond to that? Because I can think of a three ideas off the top of my head. Oh, there's a hand there. Go ahead.
So often, sorry. Especially with reoccurring meetings about the same thing, like in our neighborhoods, I try to invite somebody that they might be interested in hearing. So, for example, I'm organizing our neighborhood meeting, and we have a new fire chief. And so I think people would like to meet that person and get connected. And so that's just kind of a hook to get people to come.
Great idea. And there was another idea, B, over in the back.
Julie, I think what this lady talked about, inviting someone who's an expert in the subject, but also using your agenda to let them know that there's going to be expertise presented at the meeting, and possibly even trying to make your agenda something that is a little less boring than most meeting agendas.
Really good ideas, and we have implemented them quite a bit, and we need to come up with some fresh ones.
So, Julie, I know you're having an event on Monday, and I signed up for that event, and I'm going to be very, show much humility and say, I was super excited that you were giving stuff away. And that you were talking about animals. But I just want you to know that feedback, that it was an incentive to me, is I know you have tons of good stuff to share with people, just like you do at your table right here.
Well, thank you for that. Validation keeps us going, right?
That's. While we're passing the mic, I'll just add a few things in there. I created a signature event called the Hoot and Howl, and that was at Happy Hollow Park and Zoo. And I put so much work and effort into it, and so much sponsorship, and so much of the experience continuum. And a very good friend of mine said, "What? It's just booze and animals. How hard can it be?" So, booze and animals? No. Your location very much matters. If things get stale, I heard recurring meetings. I heard jazzing up that agenda. Those are fantastic ideas. I also like to play with moving things around, going to unexpected locations. I also like to create a little bit of FOMO. Oh, did I just steal your answer?
Just stole it. Good.
Oh, rewind. Oh, that was great. Was it what were you going to say specifically?
Locations, like a location you wouldn't typically have access to, and we're all basically a little snoopy.
I like that. Take advantage of people's snoopy nature. Give them something they can't normally get to. Such a good trick. Thank you.
So I have a question. So for some of us, Julie, I think this may relate to issues coming to halter events also, is that there's, for many of us, people have shitty memories about what we're addressing. So somehow how to reframe and articulate the importance of coming together in relative calm when we know they might not like some of the message, like you need to cut down your bay sprouts, if we're having fire folks there or whatever, but somehow to reframe it so people feel positive, not like, oh crap, you're taking me back to 2017.
That's a really great point. That's the second time today I've heard trauma. And that's what I'm hearing in there. And how do you address that? For me, I've addressed that in a couple different ways. One is a charismatic leader who people trust. It's about trust. It's about not taking them back through the trauma. It's how we're going to do it better this time. And here's the trusted person. Is there someone who's respected in the industry that can address a very difficult subject? That would be my recommendation. B, we had a question over here, or a Sherry.
I'm just wondering, if I reached out to just one person in my group to ask them what an idea from them is, then I could say, I've heard that this is a topic, instead of saying I have something that you need to hear, because nobody wants to hear that. And so how to get some other information, how to listen to a group that doesn't want to talk, maybe just listening to one person. I've not done this, so I don't know if this works, but it just occurred to me as a wondering.
Would it be okay if I use the word ambassadors for that, to summarize that? Ambassadors, ambassador, that sounds like a lot of them. Just the one. Thank you for sharing that. Hello.
One of the things that I learned, I'm in Oakmont Village, which is a 55-plus senior community. We have Spanish-speaking landscapers throughout our area, and on a Saturday when I was doing our two-way radio drill, they said to me in Spanish, "What are you doing?" And I told them, I said, we use these two-way radios on our jobs. And so I called in for our drill. I said, we have young guys here with trucks and tools. If we have an emergency, these are people that we've overlooked in getting involved in the process. I told them in return, I said, if we have a real emergency, please park in the shady tree in front of my house because I have the two-way radio. So I learned from people that were basically outside of our immediate realm of an excellent resource that we have.
Let's give that a clap for that. Wonderful, wonderful. We started out talking about how we need to rely on each other and how do we create that engagement. You spotted someone who was completely overlooked. Tools and trucks and everything. Nicely done. I think we've got one more table to share. Yeah?
I didn't get to share with my group first, so this is no. I'm creating a community of creators and creatives, so I was thinking for my invitation that I send out, I would also include 2 extra postcards that they could then send. So then you're kind of expanding, because whoever they know more people in that community that they can bring in. So maybe some way to say you can invite 2 more or some more people.
Beautiful. You're expanding your ambassadors. It's great. I think did we hear from all the tables? So, okay, wonderful, wonderful. I wanted to show this slide here because we added these extra, they look like recycling arrows. The beautiful thing about the experience continuum is it doesn't end. Each one of these can be a different facet of the next thing. You can have anticipation within the event itself. You can have travel to and travel from within the event itself. Someone gave the example of doing a Boots and Bling event where the traveling to and the anticipation information was very important. So people were safe. They weren't, breaking ankles. There was heat advisory going on, and people were arriving in leather. So of course, there's a safety communication piece to that too. But then when we're experiencing that travel to piece, I've been to events. This is a little over the top, but I did love it. The idea that everyone's parking in one place, and then you're actually that they're traveling to the event and they park, but then you grab a hold of the next section of the travel to. So now you've got to travel to within your main event. You can throw them in horseback ride carriages. You can throw them in pedicabs. You can do all sorts of things. So now all of a sudden you're controlling the next section of travel to. So I see a head nodding along there. If you experienced that. It's such a good feeling to just leave your car behind and then be treated like a VIP as you enter. So think about this when you use this continuum in anything you do, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a senior's agenda. I heard someone who worked for Senior Agenda, who works for Senior Agenda. In Santa Clara County, we call it Senior Agenda. Council on Aging, thank you, wonderful. There's something I created at Happy Hollow called the Senior Safari, which was wonderful. We got those staying kids out of the park and zoo. We found the number one reason why people weren't going to the park and zoo was because they were kids. So I said, well, if we get rid of the kids, will you come? And they're like, yeah, we'll come. I left the zoo several years ago, but that program continues and grows in popularity because we got rid of those darn kids and people want to come to the zoo and they do healthy exercise and all sorts of stuff like that. So think about doing something different, like kicking out your main guest constituents and bring in someone different. That was a little trick. It was a little bit of a heavy lift, but we did it. So that's what I have for you today on the experience continuum. Taylor, any final words?
Yes, we have a couple of final little pieces. Are you sticker people? Do you like stickers? All right, good. So we have some sticker people. So we have a sticker for each of you. Anybody guess what's going to be on the sticker? Pie, exactly so. Now, what other kind of sticker would it be? Not a magnet. Oh, that's a great idea.
Ooh,
Next
temp
time.
tattoo's good. I
Next
should write
time,
that one
tattoo
down.
is a great idea. But you know what? That's a really fun idea as well as you start to think about your events. You know, seriously, a little temporary tattoos that just signal to your guests that this isn't going to be your boring same old, right? Yes, you can. There we go. It was your idea. Now, here's the greatest thing about working with Nancy, and I know that you know this about Nancy. Nancy goes all in. So at the break time, you will notice on the back table, take a look. Pie.
Yay, Nancy.
Real quick, just have a round of applause for our speakers. Now pie.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We tried.